Boom! Okay, and we are live. Recording is going. Welcome to Olami Inspire Online. This promises to be the fastest, greatest 2 hours of your life. We're going to get some deep stuff, and we're going to be talking about a lot of deep concepts, and hopefully, you'll enjoy this program. I'm going to explain everything just to give you the overview. The first 30 minutes of this program is the rules, how the program works, how you can earn your trip to Israel, what the different trip options are, hopefully answer all your questions. And then once we do that, then we'll have a half-hour introductory segment, and then our first full-on class at 10 o'clock, and then we'll be done at 11. And we go to bed. You're saying, see, man, this is a 2-hour class? It's nothing. 2 hours go by in a flash. So we'll see. There's a lot of Jewish people in the room today, which is pretty fat. All right, fat with a P. Let me share my screen. See how this works. Boom. All right, look at that. Okay, let me make sure I got the chat thing rolling so I can see. So like I said, if you've got questions, do not be bashful. Remember to ask, and I'm here for you. So let's just scroll. Everybody can see everything. You can all see my screen. You can see my feed. You can see the screen I'm sharing. I look good, by the way. I'm a little concerned that I don't look good. I look good. I trimmed my beard for today. All right, great. So let's go through the rules, and then we'll take it next. So program, introduction, and overview. And so Melissa's asking a great question. Is there a discussion per component? So for now, the discussion is going to be in chat. At a future date, if there's a lot of desire, we may be able to open up the video feeds for other people. But we're in a webinar platform. So the way the webinar works is that it's only the presenters who get a video feed. This way it cuts down on distractions. You'll find when you're in larger groups like this right now, how many people are here right now? We're at 156 right now and counting. People are still logging in, 57. Woo! So as people log in, you'll see if you had 157 people all in the room, it would get to be a little bit overwhelming. So lots of faces, and the screen would be popping like this. All right, so let me give you the overview, and then we'll take it from there. So this is the online classroom. The online class, pretty self-explanatory. As you can see, there's chat. Everybody seems to figure that out. There's the video feed. That's me. There is, that's pretty much it. You should make sure that your chat is set to all panelists and attendees. So it's not the same on every computer. I'm not sure why. But when you open it up, some people will get, I'll show you a picture actually. Some people will say all panelists. So you don't want that. You don't want to say all panelists. You want to say all panelists and attendees. The reason why is that if it says just all panelists, the only person who can see it are the teachers, which is right now me. So nobody can see your content except for me. You put it to all panelists and attendees, that means everybody is able to see what you have to say. And so that's pretty cool. If you have a private message you want to share, let's say your best friend from high school turned up in the group. So what you should do is click on that blue button where it says all panelists and attendees, and different names will pop up. You click on one of those names, and you'll be able to speak with that person privately. Michael Amir Zadeh. That's your full name. I can see the whole thing. Kyle, you're in Boston? All right. The online classroom, the way it works is like this. The speaker will regularly check the chat box to see if there are questions. However, did I say it right? Amir Zadeh, Yazin. All right. Yeah. All right. Anyways, don't get frustrated if your questions aren't answered immediately, because what happens is sometimes while I'm teaching, I get in the flow and I just can't stop, So when I finish the idea, I'll glance over at chat. I'll see if anybody has any questions. There's a lot of people, so the questions go by quick, so don't be bashful. Feel free to ask your question a second time. Sometimes I have an assistant online who can feed me questions in the back end, but for today, my assistant is just fielding any technical issues. So we're focusing on one thing at a time. All right, what else? This is me. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That is me. Okay, that's me. I'll just tell you a little about myself. That's a link to my website, gluckin.com, spelled just like it's pronounced. Everybody at some point in their life should get a cartoon made of them. About my background, I live in Boston now, but I'm not from Boston. As you can tell from my groovy accent, I grew up in New Jersey, holiest state in the Union. I'm sure people know that. Everybody from Jersey, for sure, is familiar with how holy Jersey is. I'm from North Jersey, a place called Randolph, 45 minutes west of the city. And anyways, I ended up coming up here to Boston to go to college. I have a degree in music. My degree is in jazz studies. Went to the New England Conservatory of Music, graduated a long time ago. I ended up traveling, and I lived in New York for a couple of years, and I traveled, and I ended up in Israel. I was in Israel about 7 years. That's where I met my wife. My wife, Ruth, is on right now. Ruth, say hi. My wife is here. And we got married in Israel. A few of our kids were born in Israel. A few of our kids were born here in the States. And we've been living here in Boston now. Yes, Marie, I work for Jerusalem U also. This program is actually, I'll tell you in a second. Anyway, so I moved to Boston in 2001. I've been here ever since. And that's me. If you go to my website, my other life when I'm not working in Jewish education, I actually work in freelance. I'm a freelance music journalist. So I interview a lot of rock stars and write about mainly guitar players and lots of geeky guitar stuff. But if you're into that stuff, you can go there. You go to my Twitter feed. You can get links, all sorts of cool music. And that's I have not interviewed Nardwar, Michael, unfortunately, but one of these days, that's sort of a goal. Anyway, so that's me. I'm your educator. Been around for a long time. This program started. I was going to tell Dan and people who know me from Jerusalem. This program actually started as JU Max. We were affiliated with Jerusalem U. Started way back in 2011. There've been about 600 people who have graduated. So it's been around for a long time. About half of those people have cashed in their vouchers. So over 300 people, 350 I think, have gone to Israel using our program. So it's been really awesome. And anyways, we rebranded the program this winter. So now it is Olami Inspire Online. Same program as JU Max. Same great taste. Same great everything. All right. Anyways. So if you recognize me from there, same guy. All right, what else? Overview, how this program works. So here are the rules. We are 10 sessions, 2 classes each session, and it's a lot of great stuff. So we start at 9. Every week from 9 to 10 will be me. From 10 to 11, sometimes it's me. Sometimes we have a guest speaker. Sometimes we show a video. That's pretty much how it goes. The 2 hours go, you blink, it's over. 2 hours move on like that. Quizzes and essays. This is one of the program requirements that people freak out about. It's not that big a deal. It's not that big a time commitment. Sarah, you're eating dinner with your fiance. That is so nice. What are you guys having, by the way? Anyway, so the essays are 2 to 3 paragraphs in length. You can always write more, but don't write less. The way it works, I'm going to give you a question as a prompt. As it says at the bottom of this slide here, what happens is at the end of class, I will send you a link to that week's quiz/essay. I will also, it takes about a day for me to download the video, the recording of this class, and to upload it and get it back on our site. So within 24 hours, hopefully, unless I'm traveling, usually within 24 hours, I'm able to get the video up on our website, and I'll be sharing the link to the archive page with you. I post the link to the quiz essays there as well. The quizzes are generally 3, 4, 5 questions. I think this week there might be 8 questions. They're usually pretty easy. They're usually multiple choice, sometimes short answer. You just answer them the best you can. And then the main part is the essay. As long as you're nailing the essay, we're good. The point of I'll tell you in the next slide. The point of the essay is to demonstrate that I won't show you the next slide. The point of the essay is to demonstrate you understood the material as it was presented in class. So you're welcome to disagree. You're welcome to argue. It's just first you should state, this is what was taught in class. This is what they said. I thought it was great. Boom. This is what they said. I thought it was ridiculous. Here's why. Here's where the rabbi contradicted himself. Here's why you people are insane. Feel free to do whatever you want. But always, it needs to be proven to us that you understood what's going on. Why do we have to do this? I'll tell you why. There's 2 reasons. Number one, because it's just kind of cool that you can if it forces you to interact with the material, so it's not just in one ear and out the other. That's a very nice thing. The more important reason, though, is that the foundation funding our program is still skeptical of this thing called the interweave. And so basically, basically when they call us on it, they say, were these people there? They just put on their computers and walk away, or are they actually participating? So we're able to show the essays and demonstrate, look, they were here, they answered the questions, they understood what was going on. So that's really the main reason for it. So and it has happened, you should know. We've had instances where people were in Israel and representatives from the foundation funding us were there speaking to students, and they were skeptical whether the student really took the program. And I was able to forward the essays and demonstrate, no, the kid was really here, and stop stressing. Anyway, so that's how it works. The essays, you should do them, either do the Sunday following the program. So today's Monday. You should get it in by Sunday. What time Sunday? I'm not such a stickler. If you send it in midnight your time, that's cool. So if it's in my inbox Monday morning, I'm not going to stress. But Sunday's the deadline. I don't want to be, what happens is that if it comes, once the next class is taught, so then for me to go back and grade the essays, I eventually do, but I procrastinate on it. So the ones that I get to, I try to get to them as many as possible as they're coming in. So you really want to get your essays in as quickly as possible. The quiz essay, that's what I'm talking about. They're a program requirement. I can't give you the Israel voucher if you don't submit all 10 essays. So make sure you do it. Also, don't fake it. You will get caught. Believe it or not, people have tried to cheat. They've cut and pasted other people's. I can show you. I've got a little hall of fame of just scams and things people have tried to pull. It's really funny. So, anyways, don't let that be you. All right. What else? Participation. Be on time. This question I've already answered about 30 times in emails and stuff. So you have to attend at least 8 of the 10 sessions live and in person. If you miss 2, really it's best to be here for all 10, obviously. But this is spring. There's a lot of undergraduates in this program, so spring break's going to happen. I get it. You're going to be in Cancun, sunning your navel. Okay, I hear it. You're not going to be able to come on class that week. It's cool. So the 2 you might miss, you make up watching the archive. I send out the archive every week. The most important thing is that by the end, regardless of how many you came to, if you came to 8, 9, or 10, I'm still going to be looking for 10 quiz essays at the end. If you haven't gotten all 10 in, so I'm not going to be able to count you as having completed the program. We'll hound you at the end to make sure you catch up, but whatever. That's the bottom line. All right, cool? Does this all make sense? If you're not here right now, there's a number of people who already told me they weren't going to be here right now, which means you're actually watching the recording. You're watching the recording. Don't stress. Right now counts as your first quote-unquote missed session. So you just watch the archive, which you're doing right now, and make sure you get your essay in by Sunday. Unless you're watching this Sunday night, then do the essay right now. And this week will count as your first missed session, and next week will be your first live session. All right, cool. Hope that is cool. Participation. Join our Facebook group. It's always good to join us in Facebook. I know Facebook's not as cool as it used to be. Once upon a time, Facebook was actually hip and trendy. And you can't get the quiz and essay ahead of time, unfortunately, but you can get it as soon as the class is over. I will post a link to it at the end of this session today. Here's a link to our Facebook group. If you're not there, you like my Twitter handle, Lotan? Thank you so much. I've actually had it for a long time. I was copying Shaquille O'Neal. Follow me on Twitter. I do follow back, but you got to be cool. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm trying to say. All right. Anyway, so follow me on Twitter. Shameless plug. If I need to define cool, you know what I'm saying. All right. Anyway, so stay in touch. Stay in touch with me here. Find the Facebook group. The reason why the Facebook group is good as well is because I'll be posting everything there. I won't be putting the videos, but I'll be putting the links to the videos. So everything you need, the quizzes, I'll be putting links to everything will be there. Schedule. We meet every Monday night for 10 weeks straight. Our last class is April 29th. That includes Passover. We will be meeting over the holiday of Passover. Okay, cool. The Israel trip, how the Israel trip works. So upon completion of this program, you earn a trip to Israel. It was not false advertising. It's really true, okay? You'll notice if you go to our page, I think I have a link here. Hang on a second. I do. This is a link to approved trips. There are two versions of our website, just so you know. There's the cheesy one that I built. That's what I sent you the link to. And then there's the nice one that most of you probably signed up for. It's just so I can have some control of the back end and post the archives and things like that and whatever. Anyway, so that's all. So that's the link to approved trips. There are different types of trips available. There are free options. The free options are generally a little bit more advanced, a little bit more yeshiva style, probably a little harder to get into, but they're there if you're interested in that. There are also a number of $200 options. If you're looking for your next step after, say, Birthright, you did Birthright, you want to go back to Israel, the $200 programs are probably your best option. They're all pretty much the same. I mean, they vary a little bit. Some of them are more spiritual and emotional. Some of them are more, not extreme, but more, they do more hiking and climbing, things like that. Anyway, so there's a lot of different options. So go click on the websites and check out what's available. You're in this trip. The way it works is like this. When the program is over, we check your attendance, we make sure all your essays are in. There's a one-on-one meeting you have to have as well, which I'll explain in a second. And that's it. Then we give you the voucher. Now, you don't receive a physical voucher. I'm not sending you a PDF of a voucher. What it means, the reason why we're able to offer the different approved trips is because, I'll answer the extent question in just a second. Thank you. The reason we're able to offer all these different types of trips is because the SAM Foundation funding us is funding these different trips. So all the money is handled internally. So we have a record in our files that you completed the trip. You tell the trip, I did Olami Inspire online. When you apply, they'll know what that means. If they don't know what it means, you say, call Svi, doofus, and then they will they'll get in touch with me and whatever. Then actually, it's not even me. It's somebody in our office in Israel, and they handle everything on the back end, and it all works out. Can you extend? The way it works is like this. All the trips, like I said, are individual trips, and you have to apply and be accepted. It's not guaranteed you're going to get accepted to a trip, to any specific trip. So what I recommend is you apply to multiple trips, and especially if you're looking to go with a group of friends. The reason for that is sometimes these trips have various limitations that have nothing to do with you. They've taken 5 people from New York. They can't take 6 because they've got a donor in Wichita. They have to appease that donor and take 5 people from there. Who knows what it is? So, the more, there's no penalty for applying. So the more trips you apply to, the better chance you not only have of getting on, but getting the dates you want, going with the group of people you want. And like I said, especially with the $200 options, most of them are pretty similar anyways. Extending works like this. So once you're applying to a trip, and most of them will require a one-on-one interview, you say, I want to stay longer. If you know your dates ahead of time, 9 times out of 10, you're able to extend for a nominal fee right then and there. If you don't know and you want to extend when you're in Israel, it gets to be a little bit trickier. The way it usually works, believe it or not, has more to do with the airline than anything else. So if you're flying on El Al, they're usually very flexible, and depending on how long you extend, it's somewhere between $50 and $150 to extend your ticket, and it's usually very easy to do. That's El Al. You're flying with a stop in Europe. The European airlines are awful, and they could charge $250, $300. They could be real sticklers and not let you make changes. So it really depends on who the individual trip provider booked their flight with. So you need to discuss that with them when you apply. But like I said, if you know the dates you want to extend to beforehand, it's always a lot better. Some trips require everybody flies out together, but nobody requires everybody flies home together, to my knowledge. So just be in touch with them when you're doing that. The voucher is good this summer 2019, next winter 2019-20, and then next summer 2020. So 2020, you're able to get on the trip. So that's a great question. You should discuss it with the individual trip provider when you apply. I'm sure there's different policies and rules turning on how they do it. If it turns out that you can't go summer 2020, but you still want to go to Israel, so usually you can extend. You just need to ask us. Then. If you ask me now, I can't tell you, but you ask me in 2020, say, Svi, I can't go, but I still want to use my voucher. Can I go next winter? Can I go summer 2021? I'll look at, most likely, 9 times out of 10, I could say yes. Usually the reasons I can't say yes is because there is, who knows, either somebody aged out or There may have been an issue in funding, but generally speaking, if things are like right now, you should have no problem. So it hasn't been a problem. We've been doing this 7 years, 8 years, hasn't been a problem. All right. If you want to go to Israel this summer, I recommend you pick a trip and apply now. Like I said, acceptance is not guaranteed, and you can only apply to the approved trips, but apply to multiple trips. Choose any of them. You know, you can only choose trips to Israel as well. Unfortunately, a number of the organizations often Poland trips. Some offer trips to other places. For whatever reason, they're not allowing us to offer anything but the Israel trip. So for now, that's the only option. I know Poland's a very powerful experience, but it's not an option for this voucher, unfortunately. But Israel is, and that's great. So apply to Israel trips. They're awesome. I would recommend applying now. When you apply, tell them you're doing this course. So long as you stay on and finish, it's not going to be any issue. Your voucher will be processed in plenty of time to pay them, and it's going to all work out. So don't. If you're thinking of going this summer, get on the ball now and start the application process. Generally speaking, the sooner the better. They're all probably starting recruitment mode. It's funny, these Israel trips, you think people plan years in advance, they plan like weeks in advance. So the trips that are running in May and June are in full recruitment mode right now. So if you apply this week, next week, you're hitting right in that sweet spot. So it's a good time to apply. So I would do that now. Scholarships cannot be used for other costs like spending money or other travel-related expenses. Some programs have different rules. They might take money. Some of them require a refundable deposit. Your trip costs $200, costs $200. If they ask for $5, that's just so you don't flake because they get stuck holding the ticket. So you get that money back. And you should know that they're very good about that. Some trips require a $1 a day insurance. Some require what else? Like money for tips for driver, whatever it is. The different individual programs have different requirements. That's not included in your voucher. Our voucher covers, in most cases, your round trip ticket, your tuition on the program, which is, like $3,000. So you're doing pretty good. All right. And if you want to, Trevor, like I said, if you want to use it past 2020, you'd be in touch with me, say next spring 2020. Generally speaking, you can. This does not sound like Fry Festival, David. Okay, Israel trip costs. Your cost depends. That's right. You're going to get to Israel. You can be like on a beach, in Ashkelon with some stones and like an umbrella on the wind and some Kentucky Fried Chicken. Really funny. We should call this like the Fry Festival. That would be so awesome. Anyway, sorry about that. All right. Your cost depends on the option you choose. Like I said, most are $200. Some are free. Some offer general scholarship. General scholarships are basically $200 as well. It's usually $1,000 towards flight and free tuition. The flights are $1,200 to $1,300 depending if you're flying from the East Coast. So it's pretty cheap. So I said this already. Some programs may require a fundable deposit to hold your spot, that you purchase travel insurance, that you pay towards trips or other additional fees, blah, 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 blah. Check with the individual tour provider for details. These costs are not covered by your own Olami Inspire Israel Trip voucher, blah, 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 blah. Here's the link. I think this is the right link. Yep, there's the link to approved trips again. Have fun. Boom, boom, boom. All right, one-on-one meeting. There's a one-on-one in the third or fourth week of the program. You'll get an email from either myself, BD Deutsch, or Sivia Landau. Those are probably the three people that will contact you, telling you that you have a one-on-one meeting. They will make an introduction. If there is a Olami representative in your area, and that could be, either a rabbi or somebody in the area. So that person, they'll either make the introduction via email or they'll tell you that this person's going to get in touch with you. Sometimes the local representative will jump the gun and get in touch with you first. That's great too. The meetings generally are painful. They're generally painless. You meet in usually go get coffee. You can usually swing a free coffee out of it if you're slick. And then whatever, it's a program requirement, and it's really pretty simple. If there's no local rep in your area, like you live in rural Pennsylvania, or you live in the Yukon, or you're in Cuba, or wherever you might be, so you get to have a one-on-one meeting with me. And we do it either on Skype or FaceTime, Arkansas. And that's great. We get to hang out. My meetings are usually a bit shorter. They're usually only about 15 minutes. So you walk out. A, you get me, and B, it's shorter. So it's like a party. You party hard. All right, that's that. The mean, like I said, they're painless, and but it's a program requirement. It's those things in the essays that if you live in Central America, I don't know. They took the people. There were applications from Argentina and Central Mexico. Anybody get in? Anybody say? I know we got Mexico. Beta, am I pronouncing your name right? It's not painful, it's painless. Painless. If you have technical issues, it looks like everybody, everybody's doing really well. So don't mention it in chat. Send an email to the email address that I got. Because, like if you say, stay, you're freezing. So it just distracts everybody else. So whatever. That's the way it works. All right. That's it. Any other questions? Have I answered everything? I think I have. I know spam is not kosher. I think I got everything else. Jenny, you got a question? Yes. Can you spouse tag along on the trip? Like I said, you should check with the individual tour provider, and they'll be able to help you. And is there an age limit? The age limit on the website is 28. And mandatory donation. There is no mandatory donation for return home. That is not true. That would be called a bait and switch, which would be bad. No, if it's advertised at $200, that's $200 for your round trip ticket, and it's like we hold you hostage in Israel. If you get accepted, so yeah, there are a couple other options like J internship. The voucher works for J internship. I believe your cost is $600. It's for the whole, but that's a long program though. And if you're living in Europe, you have to check with individual providers, Kristen. I'm not sure. Not sure how it works. Way more Israel's on there. If you get stuck in Israel, what's the problem, right, Ruthie? It'd be great. All right, let's do it. Any reps in Idaho Falls or Pocatello? Am I pronouncing it? Pocatello? I don't know. It looks like, Sarah, you and I are going to be talking on Skype or FaceTime or whatever it is. Flagstaff, we have lots of people in Tempe and Phoenix. How far are you from there? All right. 28. No, Kat, I wouldn't. Be in touch with me privately, Kat. We'll discuss. I don't think it's going to be an issue. Anyways, all right. Here we go. So how do we know anything? This is the first class. Look, I'm right on time. I'm like clockwork, man. Right on time. Rabbi K is the rep in College Park. It's either going to be Rabbi K or Rabbi Zalman, if you know him. Or you might get Rabbi E at GW. Yes, Nathan. That's what you'll get. All right. How do we know anything? So I like to start with this little half-hour segment because I find it. Rabbi K and Z are the guys, Nathan. That is true. Anyways, I have a full name, Zvi. My name counts, no? Anyways, so how are we doing on people here? How many people are? 165, man. Ooh. All right. It's pretty cool, huh? 165 people. Can you imagine if we were all in a room together? How fat that would be? I'd be nervous. But now I'm just talking to myself on my computer, you know? Pate. How do I pronounce your name, Josiane? Is that right? Josiane? Am I saying it right? All right. Yes. All right. Excellent. All right. Here goes. So the reason I start with this is like this, that we're going to be presenting a lot of ideas. Some of them are going to be old, familiar things that you've known forever. Some of them are going to be ideas you've never heard before, okay? Some of these ideas you're going to think are beautiful and amazing. Some of them are going to be like, that's ridiculous. So, all right, that's good. Our goal is it's just to raise ideas, to discuss things that Judaism teaches and believes. And just to be totally fair, look, I'm wearing a yarmulke. You know, I'm an Orthodox rabbi, and so I'm going to, just to be honest, I'm going to be presenting from that position. I'll also be honest that most of the stuff, the big arguments that go between the denominations are generally not in the things that we're going to be discussing. They're in other areas, so whatever. But if there are arguments or different ways of presenting things, so feel free to bring that up to argue those points out in your essays. You know, but I'm going to do my best to be inclusive and to be as open as possible. But at the same time, I want to be intellectually honest and to be framing things from perspective that's the way I see it. You know, you don't have to buy it, but that's how I'm going to be saying it. Anyway, so the reason I say all that, all Jews are welcome here, Madeline, Reform. You should know on the application, people filled out Reform, Conservative, whatever. The number one category that people filled out, anyone want to guess? The number one category was just Jewish. That's right, Kristen, just Jewish. That was the number one category. And you know something? I would check that as well. But just Jewish, man. What more do you need? You know what they say? When you're in love, the whole world is Jewish. I don't know what that means. But all right. Anyway, so how do we know anything? The reason I say that is because first thing I wanted to, and this is rooted in Torah sources, what I'm going to be discussing now. But how do we know anything? How do you know anything? So I just want to discuss the way our brains work, the type of decisions that we make, where information comes from, and to show how this is rooted in Jewish sources, and then we'll have our first class. So this is our little introduction. How do you know anything? So let me start with a little example. If you were born in Italy, let's pretend, okay? You were born in Italy, and your parents were Catholics, okay? So you grew up in Italy, your parents are Catholics. What would you probably believe? You'd probably be a Catholic, obviously. You'd be a Catholic, so you grew up. Okay, excellent, Alex. Right. If you grew up in Iran and your parents were Muslims, okay? And, okay, great. So you grew up in Iran, and so what would you probably believe? You could be anything, obviously, but, you grew up as a Muslim in Iran, you'd probably be a Muslim, okay? You grew up in China, and your parents were card-carrying members of the Communist Party. What would you probably be? You'd probably be a communist, exactly, because that's, whatever. If you grew up in Jerusalem, in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood, and your parents were Orthodox Jews, what would you probably believe? You'd probably believe you'd be an Orthodox Jew. You'd be walking around waving your tzitzis. Okay, so anyway, so what makes you, the Jew, any better or any different than the Iranian, the Catholic, the communist, whatever it is? It's a one-word answer. What makes you any better, any different? It's a one-word answer. Exactly, Moses. Nothing. Nada. Nada mucho. Shum davar. Klum. Ain't no thing. Jack, exactly. You grow up and you're educated a certain way and you're not a critical thinker and that's what you believe, you're as brainwashed as the next guy. Okay, now it's not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily that your parents are lying to you, that your society is out to twist your skull, and maybe they are, but at the end of the day, you're going to grow up believing the ideas that are just in the air around you. So what I want to discuss is, in terms of trying to come to truth and understanding really what reality is that necessarily the best way to go through your life? So there are 4 ways we know things. What we call socialization, faith, belief, and knowledge. Let's go through each one. The first one is socialization. Socialization is like I said, okay? It affects, obviously, say, like things like religion, like if you grew up in a Catholic family, you'll be raised a Catholic. If you grew up in a communist family, you're raised a communist. If you grew up in a secular American family, you're raised a secular American. Okay, great, but it extends a lot further than that as well. So, for example, if you travel around the world, almost the entire world believes or likes soccer, okay? What do Americans think of soccer? Americans are like, yawn. Americans are not so interested in soccer. Why? Because it's not a sport that, exactly, Moses. I mean, some people think it's not so lame, but, in America, we like football and baseball. Isn't that true? Because why? Because Americans, we like to think we could do it better. So football, there's a play, there's a lot of action, and then it stops, and you talk about it. And you talk about, I would have done this better, and ooh, that was a good catch, and blah, 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 blah. And then there's another play. And it stops, and then you talk about baseball's the same thing. It's even slower, and you talk about it. You get into the stats. It's just the way the American mind works. It's cultural, whatever. That's the way we're wired in the United States. Okay, the rest of the world thinks football and baseball are boring, but they like soccer. They'll play basketball. They'll be into hockey. You know how it is. All right, let's take it a step further. This here is Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz. Okay, so here in America, on the American political scene, these two guys are probably polar opposites. Bernie is hard to the left. Ted is hard to the right. And if you get them in a room, actually, I didn't watch it, but there was a big debate between the two of them right after the election on healthcare. Sure, it was great. You know, they're smart people. They've got strong opinions. And anyways, they're very, very different in their opinions. However, look at how they're dressed. Look at their mouths. Look at their hands. Look at their haircuts. You know, I'm sure if you were to hang out with them, they probably have similar taste in foods. They probably like similar sports. They're different ages, so maybe their taste in music are a little bit different. I think Cruz is a good 40 years younger than Bernie. But whatever it is, the point is that if they were to be in a, God forbid, let's say they were in a plane crash, and they were the only two Americans on the plane, the only two English speakers on the plane, they would probably bond. Okay, they'd still argue politics and probably argue all sorts of things, but they would probably bond because there's a lot more in common about them than there is that distinguishes them. In the very narrow world of politics, they argue. But even in that narrow world of politics, they're both members of the Senate. They've both been reelected. They both deal with the same types of issues. They're still like in that same world, you know? They both run for president. It's like they're in that same, that's the whole thing, you know? There's much more that's common than there is that they disagree on. We focus on the disagreements because that's how our world is, and we're into that kind of stuff. But, you know, society forms you and shapes you in many different ways. It gets even deeper than that. Pretty much everything, your taste in food, the types of sports you like, your beliefs and assumptions about rights and political systems, the types of men or women you find attractive, the way you define success or productivity, your basic outlook on life, like, or philosophy or religion or whatever it is. All these things are part of your society. So if all these things are part of your society and how you're conditioned by your society. So like I said, they're not necessarily evil, they're not necessarily wrong, but if you're trying to come to an objective understanding of what's real, of what's truth, it may be a good place to start, because I don't want to say your parents or whatever are lying to you, but if you're not, or your clergy or whoever, but if you're not getting satisfactory answers, you want to move on and see something else. Ask more questions. Be a critical thinker. So that's society. That's socialization. The next category is faith. Anybody have a definition of what faith is? How would you define faith? Faith is trust. Trust without evidence. Excellent. Excellent. So I would define faith like you guys. It's belief without proof, or an emotional conviction based on something you want to be true. Like the tooth fairy when you're little. But it's not, you know, and oftentimes we identify the concept of faith with religion, but faith many times has nothing to do with religion. I'll give you an example. This is old news now, which is crazy. Everybody know who this is? Who's this? Who's this a picture of? This is Bernie. Okay, now it's Bernie Madoff. How did Bernie get away with it? Anybody knows the story Bernie Madoff was he ran a Ponzi scheme. He stole, the estimate I saw was $70 billion. He's the biggest criminal in history, okay? $70 billion. How do you get away with it? How do you get away with it? You know, and think about it. It's faith. It's faith. There was an article that came out around the time the scandal broke. There was a guy named, I read this in the New York Times. The guy's name was Harry Markopolos. You can Google it later. So Harry Markopolos, this was in the 90s. He was an investment banker in the 90s. And his boss said to him, you know, Bernie's fund is consistently beating the market. Bernie's people are making all this money. If he could do it, we can do it too. Figure it out. So this guy went and he investigated Madoff. And keep in mind, this is the 90s. This is before computers were fast like they are now. You couldn't hack like you can now. There were no WikiLeaks. But not only that, he didn't have the power of subpoena. He couldn't get secret documents. He's just some person looking up publicly available records. He's an investment banker, so he understands things a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, he has a more intimate knowledge of how it works. But at the end of the day, he's looking at public stuff anybody can figure out. He came to the conclusion after a few months there was no way that Bernie was really making the money he was saying he was making. He figured out that it was a scam. And this guy claimed that by the year 2000, he had given the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, gift wrap case against Madoff. They dropped the ball because that's what the SEC does. Anyways, needless to say, it was obvious. So why did people fall for it? They fell for it because they wanted to believe it. They wanted to believe it. Belief without proof. Bernie, everybody involved was rich. you couldn't get in if you didn't give 10 million. You had to the starting bid was $10 million just to get in. Doesn't make sense. The statements I'm making, but everybody else is making money. I'm making money too. In other words, if you were to do investigation and think about it, you'd see that it wasn't true. But you don't want to do that. You want to believe it's true. So since you want to believe it, you believe it. That's faith. Belief without proof. That applies to other areas as well, to spiritual disciplines, to whatever, bad relationships. But as a starting point, at least, that's what faith is. All right. What's belief? Can anybody give me a definition of belief? Belief. Faith is belief without proof, or an emotional conviction based on something I want. Exactly. So belief is a conviction. Specifically, belief is a conviction based on evidence. How much evidence? Some evidence. Okay? A lot of evidence? Maybe, but not necessarily. I'll give you an example. I don't know if these places still exist, but after I graduated college, I was living in New York, and they had these places called check cashing places. They still have check cashing places today. So we had check cashing places back. They do? Okay, good. So we had check cashing. So the way it used to work, you get paid on Friday. You go to the check cashing place. You give them your check. They give you money. You party all weekend. And Monday, yeah, exactly. You starve until Friday again, and that's just the way life goes. All right. So do you just give them a check and they give you money? No. The way it works is you show up with a check. You have to show them an ID. They may have to have a file of your check, or they have to have some kind of relationship with the bank, or they have to have a file of the signatures, whatever it is. They take as much evidence as they can to guarantee that you really are who you say you are, and that the check is as good as it's supposed to be. And they'll give you up to about $5,000, up to about $3,000. Because that's what it was back in the day. Okay, could you be lying? Could it be a scam? Absolutely. But generally speaking, the evidence is strong enough and it's good enough to make a decision to part with even a significant amount of money. Our legal system works on belief. If somebody's convicted of a crime and goes to court, the judge and the jury will never know like the witnesses know. They just won't. And yet you're able to make a conviction. The conviction is based on evidence. Now, even if the criminal confesses and says, I did it, you still never really know, but the evidence is strong enough, and it's strong enough to make a decision, and it could be a decision to lock a person away for the rest of their life, to take their money, to even do a capital, to execute a person. So that's the way our society works. Our society works on belief. Now, belief, like I said, it's not 100%. There could be holes. There could be problems. But you know what? The pros outweigh the cons. Now, you shouldn't really speak this way because philosophy doesn't work this way, but whatever, 51% versus 49%. So the pros outweigh the cons, 51%. So if you make a decision based on the 51%, you're being intellectually honest. You're going the way the evidence lies, but there's still questions. You're going to still have doubts. You're going to still, some works this way. Okay, sorry, thank you. You're going to still have doubts. You'll still wake up in the middle of the night with a crisis of faith, but you're moving in a direction that's at least based on solid ground. You're doing your best to be intellectually honest. And like I said, our society, generally speaking, functions on this. Our society, it's a belief-based society. Whether it's cashing a check, whether it's trusting your ID and letting you get on a plane, whether it's the way our legal system works, etc. and so forth. All right. Final thing is knowledge. What is knowledge? Anybody have a definition? What's knowledge? Ooh, knowledge is power. Okay, that's good. Belief we consider certain. Okay, excellent. So I would define like this. Knowledge is an intuitive perception based on an overabundance of evidence. So for example, let's pretend you've never been to China. Most of us have probably never been to China. So some people get hung up on the word intuitive, by the way. Sorry. Anyway, so if you've never been to China, does China, except for Sarah, okay, does China exist? Does China exist? And Janet, you can't answer either, Janet. Does China exist? Answer is yes. David says no. Max says no. Coral says yes. How do you know that China exists? The Earth is flat too. Great. Okay. How do you know China exists? So, I don't know, my phone says made in China on the back. You've met Chinese people. It's in the news. Isn't Trump going there? No, he's going to Vietnam. He's meeting with they're negotiating with China right now. It's on the map. Think about it. Either there's a global conspiracy and every map maker, news person, manufacturer, Chinese person is coming to convince you of the existence of China, or China really exists. That's the thing. The evidence is so overwhelming. You're not a brainwashed idiot for believing the existence of China. It's there. It exists. There's so much evidence. To believe the opposite is now you want Chinese food. To believe the opposite is really more absurd. Samuel Beckett, who was a great playwright, won the Nobel Prize. He wrote either a play or a short story, I don't remember, where you get in a plane, you fly, you leave New York, get in a plane, you land, you're back in New York, but they tell you that you're in France and they've rearranged the furniture, so now you're in France. You're not in France, you're in New York, okay? That's absurdist theater for real. To think that the entire world, a global conspiracy, a cast of thousands, is trying to convince you of the existence of China is just a little bit nuts. So that's knowledge. It's an intuitive perception based on an overabundance of evidence or fact. So when we're talking about Judaism and the basis for Jewish belief, tell me what you think. I usually do a poll here, but I was lazy. I didn't make the poll. So is the basis for Jewish belief faith, knowledge, or a little of both? What do you think? Tradition, knowledge, both? Lots of boths. Faith, both? These are great answers. All right, you guys are rocking. So I'll give you the answer. Let me rock your world. You're all right. But I'll go like this. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 39, it says, "And you shall know this day and place it on your heart that God is God, and the heavens above and on the earth below, there is none else." Knowledge is king. You have to have an intuitive perception of an awareness of God's existence, like the nose on your face. Okay, that's what the Torah says. How many people do you know are walking around with this level of awareness? Not very many. I translated it myself, Amanda, but based on the Aryeh Kaplan translation, just so you know. But anyways, not too many people. I've met one or two people like this, and they're great people. They're holy people. I'll tell you something. If you meet holy people, I don't care the religion. Holy people are impressive. They live with a sense of conviction. It's amazing. All right. So this is what the Torah is saying, but most people don't live like this. So what's going on? So this is the goal. I'm going to give you, this is Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. This is Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. And Moshe Chaim Luzzatto lived in the 1700s. He's really just quoting from older sources. I'm just using this source because it says it really nicely. But it says every Jew must believe and know. What's it mean? Believe and know. You can read the rest of the sentence yourself. Believe and know mean that knowledge is the goal. Belief is the starting point. Meaning that ultimately, if you spend your life in a pursuit of holiness, eventually you're going to get to this goal where you live with an intuitive perception and an awareness of God. Okay, that's the goal. But the starting point is at least be intellectually honest. That's the goal. Intellectually honest. You have to at least, look at the evidence, look at the pros, look at the cons, and make the best decision you can based on the evidence available. Are you always going to be right? No. Are you going to have crises of faith even though you think you're going in the right direction? Of course. Are you going to have nights that just really bother you? Obviously. But at the end of the day, you're not basing your belief on a leap of faith. It's actually very interesting. I don't remember the verse now, but in Isaiah, the prophet chastised the people for their emunah tefela, their bad belief, which is what? A leap of faith. That's just not a Jewish way of doing things. We don't take a leap of faith. Your belief should be based on the best evidence you can. You should be a thinking person. If you think about this, it makes sense. When you buy a house, you don't just walk into a neighborhood and say, just looking at some of the comments. Okay, very good. So anyway, the first thing you'll know is if you go to buy a house, you don't just go and buy a house. What do? You look at neighborhoods, you investigate neighborhoods, you maybe even rent and live in a place for a little while to check it out and see if this is for you. You look at property value, you look at the school district, you look at taxes, all sorts of things. When you finally find a neighborhood you like, then you start looking for houses. If you finally find, that can take forever. When you finally find a house, Then you got to have an appraisal. You have to have an inspector come. By the time you've bought a house, you've gathered so much evidence. You could still be making a mistake, but you've gathered a lot of evidence to make sure you're making a good decision. Your car makes a funny noise. If your car's making a funny noise and you go to the mechanic and he puts his hands over the hood and goes, "Dude, man, that's so the transmission." You'd be like, "Hello? Put that car on one of those lifts. You know, give me some evidence." You want to get some, in other words, you want to get evidence. When you get married, you don't just marry the first person who smiles at you. You maybe go on a date. You maybe meet his or her parents. You maybe, get to know each other. You know what I'm saying? In other words, you gather as much evidence as possible. Most of us won't even go to a restaurant or go to a movie without getting a recommendation. Okay, a restaurant movie's not a big deal. Maybe you'll take a risk. But generally speaking, we try to gather as much evidence as possible before we make decisions. If God really exists, and God really made man, and God made us in such a way that for every decision in life, whether it's something major like buying a house or something minor like going to a restaurant, we try to gather as much evidence as possible. It doesn't make sense that all of a sudden when it comes to belief in him, you take a leap in faith. What are you talking about? If God made us the way that we demand evidence for belief in religion, God, for belief in God, you should have to demand some evidence as well. So that's the way. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Tevi just blew my train of thought. How am I going to afford all these weddings? I don't know. Anyways, all right. Now, what's the role of, anyways, the point is that this makes sense. God made us to be critical thinkers. Be a critical thinker. Now, emotion plays a role, obviously. Just because you know something intellectual, you still need to integrate it emotionally. Just because you know it doesn't mean necessarily believe it. I'll tell you a wild story, and my wife will forgive me for telling the story, but it's such a powerful story. If you ever go to a Jewish funeral, so you'll notice that people don't just cry uncontrollably. They cry at significant points in the funeral. They cry when they take the body out of the hearse. They cry when they read the eulogies. They cry, they put the body in the ground. Because how come? Because even though intellectually you know that your beloved has passed away, you don't realize it. It's not really there emotionally. And so when you go through the significant points of the funeral, like when you're saying the Kaddish, or you're putting the body in the ground, that's another piece of evidence that my beloved is really dead. You're emotionally integrating that which you know intellectual. So I was telling this story. I don't hope my wife forgives me, but I remember when my father-in-law died a number of years ago. My in-laws had been married probably 40 years at that point. And so we went to the funeral and buried my father-in-law. And as we're leaving, my mother-in-law is looking for a husband to go home. You know what I'm saying? Just buried him, she just buried him. But just because intellectually you know something doesn't mean emotionally it's caught up with you. And that's why if you look in Judaism, just because you have an intellectual foundation in Judaism, still you have a lot of different commandments, everything from putting a mezuzah on the doorpost to saying the Shema to daily prayer, which are tools to help you intellectually emotionally integrate these things that you know intellectually. So that's the whole point. So emotion plays a role. We're not just a bunch of, automatons walking around. Yes, we have religion. Yes, God, I make rational decisions. But you want those decisions, based, but you want them backed up with an emotional wallop as well. But it takes a while to integrate your system to get your kishkas going. All right. This idea that I'm sharing with you now, this idea I'm sharing with you now, this is not some esoteric, crazy idea. This is the first commandment in the Torah. The first commandment in the Torah is, I am the Lord your God. There's actually a debate. If you Google the 10 Commandments, there's a discrepancy between how the Jews and the Christians read these commandments. But since this is a Jewish class, I'm going to go with the Jewish version. So we read the first commandment as, I am the Lord your God. The Christians read that as a preamble to the first commandment, which is, don't have other gods before me. Don't believe in other powers is the second commandment for the Jews. Anyways, then we combine covet, they split them into two separate ones. Okay, anyways, who cares? The point is that the first command is, I'm the Lord your God. Now that's a weird language, especially because I already showed you we have Deuteronomy 4:13-39, where it says, and you shall know this day and place to your heart. So you know that we have a commandment to know God exists. So why the first commandment, why is it worded in this way? I'm the Lord your God. So the reason is because look who it's speaking to. God is not speaking. God is speaking. The commandment's written in language that God is speaking to you. God is saying, I'm the Lord your God. Get to know me. Don't believe this because your parents said so. Don't believe this because the rabbi said so. Don't believe this because it feels good. Believe this because you gathered evidence. I'm Lord your God. Get to know me. Be a critical thinker. Question authority, challenge authority, and come to this level of understanding on your own. And you should know this is not some rabbinical idea. This is not some mystical, esoteric concept found in the Kabbalah. This is the first commandment of in Judaism, which is what? To be an independent, critical thinker. Think for yourself. Gather the evidence. Make an intelligent decision. And this, by the way, is Jewish socialization. Jews value, fill in the blank, education. Ask a Jew a question. He answers you with a question. Exactly. 2 Jews, 3 opinions. We're even Jews, whether we're raised in the religion or we're not, our cultural socialization in Judaism is to question authority, question everything, and to try to be critical thinkers and come to a rational basis for our belief system. That's the way it works. It's the way we deal in business. It's the way we deal in school. It's the way we deal in sciences. It's the way we drive the rest of the world crazy. And it's also the way we're supposed to interact. We never shut up, exactly, Ivy. It's also the way we're supposed to interact within our religion as well. If you ever read the Talmud, even though the Talmud was written a long time ago and it was written, people put it together, they wrote it as a stream of consciousness argument because that's the way Jews are, man. It's like, how can you say that? That's crazy. This is how, what have you done this? That's just Judaism, all right? So anyways, so you have to make the best. So Michael's raising a question here. So you want to make, exactly, Michelle, the first commandment is telling you to be a critical, independent thinker. Exactly. The commandment is saying the whole system starts and ends with you thinking for yourself. You want to buy into the system, you have to have a rational basis for your belief. Don't just accept Judaism because it feels good, because the rabbi told you so, because your parents said so. Do it because you have investigated and done your homework, and you're making the best decisions you can based on the evidence available. You want to be an independent thinker. You don't want to have what we said before, emunah tefela, blind faith. You want your belief to be based on as much evidence as possible. Okay. The final thing, and this is really, like I said, because this is really the introduction to this. You should study physics and engineering. Maimonides says, if a person wants to truly love God, that person should study science, because by studying science, you see what God did. You see the world that he built and all the wonders, and it comes to strengthen your belief. That's what Maimonides said. He said that 1,000 years ago. So, okay, you should study science, ask questions. Don't be afraid of evidence. Don't be afraid of information. Don't be afraid of ideas that contradict what you think is true. It's all good. What's the worst case scenario? You're wrong. Okay, you'll move on. Right? What difference does it make? All right. Final thing, though, like I'm saying, is be a judge, don't be a lawyer. No offense to lawyers. But what's a judge? A judge is someone whose job is ultimately to be impartial. Okay, you say the claimant says this, great. Let me see your evidence. Oh, you say your claimant's like this? Let me see the evidence. A judge, the role of a judge is to argue. The role of a lawyer is to argue your case to the nth degree. You learn both sides of the argument and fight for your cause. That's great, but you're emotionally invested in information. We're trying to just figure out, what does Judaism say? What does Judaism teach? What do I think about this stuff? Don't be emotionally invested in the answers. If the answers confirm your biases, great. If they contradict everything you grew up with, great. Okay, take the information and work with it. That's the bottom line. All right. And okay, Jesse. And so that's that. So that's part one. Be a critical, independent thinker. We're going to take a 3-minute break. Everybody, now is time for you to stretch your legs, and we'll come back to part two. Sam, that's a great question, which I will take a little while later, or we can discuss it in your essay. Obviously, you want to try to come to the best evidence possible. I would argue, just for Sam's question, that the fact that the Torah is commanding this is that it's got a little bit of self-confidence. But again, that's up to you. Up to you. Okay, excellent. Everybody look for food right now. I will be right back in just a sec. Sam, welcome. Samuel House, welcome to our group. All right. Be right back. Dina's going to make a playlist while we're all gone. All right. I don't do so much gigging anymore. I do a lot of writing now, David. Do a lot of a lot of freelance writing. That's kind of my main bag now. All right, just before I start part 2, like I said, if you haven't yet joined our Facebook group, do it. I'll accept all the people after the Emily, such a great question. My biggest musical influence changes with the wind. Every day it's someone new. You know? Could be anybody. Name someone. I've probably listened to it, you know? Today, who did I listen? Today I was listening to the Babe Rainbow. Secret enchanted broccoli forest. I don't know the Long Island punk scene. I know from back in the day. Back in the day, the punk scene was like back in the day, I like Dylan. I'm reading a book of Dylan's interviews right now, which is pretty awesome. And anyways, I'll talk about my musical stuff in a little bit. Anyways, let's get on. Ana DeFranco, I haven't checked out, but I've interviewed some cool people though. I interviewed Tom Morello recently. I interviewed Slash. I interviewed all sorts of cool stuff. I even wrote a piece. Aren't there Iranians here? I wrote a piece about Gugush, the great Iranian diva, the Beyonce of Iran or Iran. Anyways, Snarky Puppy. All right, pretty cool. All right, here we go. I got to get to part 2. Otherwise, we are going to run out of time, and everybody's going to say, "See what happened." So here we go. Okay, here we go. Here we go. This next thing is called the 5 levels of pleasure. So if you've never heard this before, it's pretty awesome. And if you have heard it before, it's pretty awesome. Anyway, so the thing is like this. So H. Bloomington people, woo! So Toby, so you'll be reviewing all this. It's great. It gets better every time you hear it. I want to preface this by saying this. When you first hear this talk, which I'm about to give right now, when you first hear it, see your attitude is probably, oh, dude, this is fluff. This is fluff. But when you actually get into it, you realize it's sourced in some of the deepest Jewish ideas and some powerful stuff. So my goal is I'll present the ideas in a smooth, non-confrontational way. And then I will show you some of the sources as we go along. And you'll see there's a lot of depth there. So there you go. H. Bloomington, Indiana. Indiana. So anybody here ever fly in a plane? Hopefully you'll all be flying on a plane when you take your trip to Israel. You ever fly first class? Flying first class is the best. I've never paid for first class, but I have been bumped to first class, and it's awesome. There's nothing better than getting bumped to first class. It really is. It's the best. You get on the plane, there's all this room, you sit down, you know. It's incredible. Anyways, your cat just jumped onto the couch. She wants to learn to all right, have you? Anyways, so first class is the best. That's the best. First class is the best. I'm not a wealthy person. Like, I don't have millions of dollars. If I did, I'm not buying a mansion or a penthouse in New York or like a Ferrari. I'm not into that kind of stuff. But you know what? I'll probably buy first class tickets to fly to places like Israel because it's just the best. You know, that room, you're not sitting packed and crammed up, you know? Anyway, so that's just my opinion. All right, so that's first class. All right, what's the level after first class called? What's it called after first class? It's called business, exactly. Why isn't it called second class? That's what it really is. Shouldn't they call it second class? Second class? They don't call it second. Exactly. It's not good marketing. Second class is like, who am I? Second class? Not second class flyer. Business. Difference between business and first class. First class is you pay for it. Business, the boss pays for it. All right. What's after second class? Second class is coach or economy. Same thing. Shouldn't they be calling it steerage or third class? Oh man, I hate sitting in the back like that. Oh, it's the worst. Especially you get stuck in a middle seat between, I don't know, people leaning on you. Oh my God, it's the worst. You know, it really is. It really, oh my God. I don't want to give you the buy it. American Airlines recently changed. They invented something called basic economy, where you have to pay an extra $20 to pick a seat. Forget that. So I fly JetBlue now, but it's ridiculous, man. I've had for when I go to Washington. So the only way I can get flight home is like is American, like late at night. So I sit in the middle, and whatever. It's horrible. That's third class, right? Well, Spirit's the worst. Spirit's complete ripoff. I'm not doing that. No offense if anybody here works for Spirit. All right, what's the level after $50? It's true. $50, you got a wallet in your pocket. So what's after third class? Coach economy? That would be called baggage. Exactly. They put a stamp on your head and they stick you below the plane. And then what would be after that? They give you a rope and you hang on the back. Okay. Well, so now if you get the rope, some people would pay top dollar for the rope on one of those little parachute planes. But if you're flying like on a real jumbo jet, like in our picture here, forget it, man. You've got to fly. You get frostbite, you'll fall off, you'll die. So anyways, but whatever. I digress. The point is, what do all these classes have in common? What do all these classes have in common? First class or fifth class? What do they have in common? They all have in common. You're still getting from point A to point B. Exactly. It's better to fly first class, but you can even fly fifth class, and you're still going to get where you want to go. Pleasure's the same way. Now, the analogy breaks down a little bit, because if I had all the money in the world, I would only fly first class. Pleasure, you want all 5 classes of pleasure. You want to get all 5. But the point is, whether you're taking first class or fifth class pleasure, it's still pleasurable. That's the whole point. It's still pleasurable. And so what we want to do is we want to learn about these pleasures. You want to learn this hierarchy of pleasures, so you'll spend your time investing. You're not going to not have the lower ones, but you want to spend your time investing in the higher pleasures, so you can, you can really experience, you can maximize your life and maximize your experience. Okay, we need a basic definition of pleasure. So pleasure, at least for our purposes here, is something that gives you energy. You ever play sports or work out? How do you feel after a good workout? Do you feel like death? Do you feel like death? You feel refreshed, exactly. You have is that you hooping there, Bennett? Anyways, so this picture's an old picture. Anyways, after a good workout, you feel pumped. You can walk through walls. You want to rip up trees with your teeth. You're feeling fantastic. So anyways, pleasure gives you energy. How do you feel after a full day of school and then work and then a paper you have to write? How do you feel by the end of the day? Death. Exactly. Exhausted. You can't even lift your finger to press the remote control on the TV. It's just, you drain. That's something that's not pleasurable, sucks the life out of you. So what you want to do is you want to focus on pleasure. You want to focus on things that give you energy. That's what pleasure is. You want to find the real pleasure. Okay, so let's look at all the different pleasures. We're going to go through all 5 levels, and hopefully, we'll learn something deep and profound. Okay, level number 5. What's the 5th level of pleasure? Anybody know? 5th level of pleasure? Everybody's into sex and food. Okay, both great things, both 5th level pleasures. But what would be a more general term for those things? Thank you for Samuel House. Physical pleasure. Sex, food, and bagels are all physical pleasure. Physical pleasures are pleasures that you do with the body. Now, physical pleasures are great. Food, sex, bagels, pizza, beer. These are great. Drugs we'll talk about, Josie, and it's actually an excellent question, but we'll get to that. Chocolate, hummus, okay, bagels are great. Okay, I guess it depends on the bagel. Anyways, the point is that physical pleasure is 5th class pleasure. Now, the first step to experiencing physical pleasure is becoming, and this is true for all the pleasures, we're focusing on physical for now, is being a connoisseur. Is anybody here a connoisseur of wine? Anybody here a connoisseur of wine? So a connoisseur of wine. So if you ever speak to someone who's a connoisseur of wine, you are, Coral? You're a connoisseur of wine? You ever speak to a connoisseur of wine? So hang on just one second. I need to take a picture. I forgot I was supposed to take a picture, a screenshot of our class. Hang on, capture, hang on. Everybody just smile for the camera. Okay, I got it. Excellent. Oh, we look good. Okay. We look good. Okay. Anyways, so sorry about that. Sorry about that. All right, cool. So whoops. Wait. Sorry. I'm messing up. All right. Anyways, so okay. So anyway, so if you tell the connoisseur, you aren't seeing Jenny. It's just I was joking, but it's me. I'm in the picture. I can't see you. All I can see are your names, unless your cameras are on, or I work for Facebook. Then of course I can see you even when you turn your camera off and go to bed. I'm still with you. God is like Facebook. He's always there. Oh, Facebook is Satan. Okay, I take that back. Anyways, all right. So, woo! Woo! Steve! Woo! Come back. All right, so connoisseur of wines. Have you ever talked to a person who is a connoisseur of wine? So they'll tell you about the oak flasks and the bouquet, and that they can taste, I can taste the cherry in the wood. You know, it's like, okay, I don't know, me, it tastes like wine. You know what I'm saying? It all tastes like wine, whatever. But a connoisseur is someone who is an expert in wine. If you ever appreciate, like, I'm a musician, so I'm into jazz, let's say. You've never heard late 60s Eric Coltrane. It sounds like noise. But if you become a connoisseur and you appreciate what he's doing, whoa, OMG. You know, it's just really pretty amazing. So that's the whole thing. We're all, I think, connoisseurs of pizza for the most part. Most of us are connoisseurs of pizza. So, connoisseur of pizza. So, you know, there's different types of pizza, and I don't even mean Coltrane rock, Brian. That's true. I don't even mean, like, say, deep dish versus Sicilian, whatever. I just mean a regular slice of pizza. Like, we're connoisseurs, you know? There's the types you get in New York where it's really thin and you pick it up and the pizza bends and the grease drips off the edge. So good, right? Then there's like the piece in my picture here where you cook it a second time, the cheese gets brown. Or they put a little bit of leaven in the sauce. Like I heard, like you put the garlic in the microwave first before you make the sauce and smush it around. But in other words, if you appreciate pizza, if you're a connoisseur of pizza, you know what pizza's all about. Your experience is different. That's the point. You want to be a connoisseur. That's how you experience a pleasure. Now, every pleasure also has a counterfeit. And at this point, everybody always gets tripped up. So don't make this mistake. The counterfeit is not the opposite. The counterfeit is something that at the time when you're having the pleasure, you think it's a pleasure, it feels like the pleasure, but instead of it giving you energy like a real pleasure, it leaves you empty and drained, okay? Every pleasure has a counterfeit, like drugs. Okay, good. So what is the counterfeit of physical pleasure? Now, this is the most esoteric. It's the most difficult one, but what's the counterfeit of physical pleasure? Anybody know? Junk food, it's good, Moses. Counterfeit of physical pleasure would be overindulgence. Overindulgence. I'll give you an example. Did you ever sit down in front of the TV? He hasn't eaten it yet, though, Joe. You sit down in front of the TV with one of those economy-sized bags of potato chips you get from Costco, okay? So you watch whatever you're watching. When you're done with the program, the entire bag from Costco is gone. Which potato chip was it that stopped being pleasurable and started becoming nauseating? The answer is none of them. Each one was delicious. Each one was amazing. It's the cumulative effect of all those potato chips that you're like, oh, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Really what you should do, and nobody does this, really what you should do is buy one of those single serving packages of potato chips and just eat that. If you're a connoisseur of potato chips, you eat them, you appreciate the pleasure, it's delicious, and that's it. You get a little bit, you get energy, you don't feel disgusted. But who does that? You eat the entire economy bag, and that's why you feel pretty disgusted. So the physical pleasure, you want to be a connoisseur to appreciate it, learn about the pleasure. The counterfeit is overindulgence. Now, the third thing you need to know to really enjoy pleasure is to know no pain, no gain. People think that the opposite of pleasure is pain. That's not true. The opposite of pleasure is not pain. The opposite of pain is no pain. Pain and pleasure, the way they're related is that pain is the effort you need to make in order to experience real pleasure. The greater the effort, the greater the reward. That's actually a famous Aramaic expression, lafum sara agra. The greater the effort, the greater the reward. According to the effort is the reward. In other words, everybody knows the amount of pleasure you get in life is in direct proportion to the amount of effort you put in. You want to have a ripped Adonis physique like mine, for example. You don't just wake up one morning pumped, looking great. You've got to hit the gym and pump some serious iron. Isn't that true? You're not willing to work out and kill yourself, you're not going to get the physique you want. That's the same thing. To stick to a diet, oh my goodness. Anyway, so that's the whole point. No pain, no gain. You like the iron? I did that for the Israelis. Anyway, so exactly, you go to chemical engineering and you work your butt off, but you don't go to a lot of parties. But at the end of the day, you got the degree, you learn the information. Wow, that's really great. Pain is just weakness leaving the body. Yeah. All right. The point is like this. Is that for physical pleasure, it's the most, the effort to really focus on the piece of pizza isn't so hard. But as you get to the higher levels, you'll see the effort's a lot more. But even physical pleasure, when you become a connoisseur and you really understand the pleasure, you naturally regulate. I'll give you an example. When I was in college, this is way back a million years ago. So we used to get 30 packs of Stroh's beer for $11.99. 30 packs of Stroh's beer for $11.99, all right? Now, it wasn't the best beer in the world, but that's what we got in college. Eventually, I think when Bush was elected, we switched to Bush beer because, why not? I thought it was funny. But it's also $11.99. Anyway, so we had Bush, exactly. It's not such a good beer. But anyways, so that's what we drank in college. It was garbage. When I graduated college, I moved to New York. I started becoming a beer snob. I was drinking like Sammy Smith oatmeal stouts, and getting the French beers in the the Belgian beers in the champagne bottles, and like home brews and all sorts of stuff. This is before the microbrewery thing really kicked off. But anyways, the point is I became a bit of a beer snob. So here's the thing: when you go to the liquor store and you want to buy, like, say, a 30-pack for $11.99, or maybe what's it now, $17.99, whatever it is. Where do they keep those beers? They keep those beers in the front. Right? The truck comes, the forklift comes, takes the pallet off the truck and dumps it in the middle of the floor. They stick a sign, sale, 30-pack, $11.99, and they serve it warm. Where do they keep the Sammy Smith oatmeal stout, or the Korsendock, or the Paulaner Hefeweizen, or whatever you're into? They keep it in the back of the fridge. And they don't sell it in 30 packs. It's usually either in singles or in 4-packs or in 6-packs. How come? Why do they do it? You never heard of a 30-pack? How? You haven't lived. Anyways, the reason why they do that is because when you're a connoisseur, you naturally regulate. You're not going to put like a Sammy Smith oatmeal stout in one of those hats with the funnels. That's for the, you're not going to get a keg of that stuff. That's for the Stroh's beer or whatever you're at, the Rolling Rock, You're getting the real beers, you naturally regulate. Same thing, a wine connoisseur, they spit the stuff out, If you're a connoisseur, you're going to naturally moderate. You're a connoisseur of pizza, connoisseur of potato chips. You won't overindulge. That's the whole point. So physical pleasure is fifth-class pleasure. The counterfeit is overindulgence. What's fourth-class pleasure? Fourth-class pleasure is one better than fifth-class pleasure. Anybody know what it is? One better than fifth-class pleasure. Anybody know? Relationships? Excellent. What kind of relationships, Joe? Emotional, excellent. Fourth-class pleasure is love. Love. Now, the reason why love is better than physical pleasure is because, and this is true for all the levels as we go up, there's no exchange rate. If you got lots of money, you can buy lots of physical pleasures, and you'll trade physical pleasure. You'll trade money for a week at the beach. You'll trade, whatever it is. Most healthy people, I don't care too much for money because money can't buy me love. Thank you, Joe. All right. Anyways, so but most people wouldn't say sell one of their children for all the money in the world. And the reason for that, hopefully, is because some people might. Okay, but the reason for that, generally speaking, is because as great as money is and as great as physical pleasure is, Love is better. There's no exchange rate. No quantity of physical pleasure can buy you love. That's the bottom line. So what is love? Can I command you to love me? Can I command you to love me? Go ahead and love me. What is love? So that's the question. What is love? Excellent. How much are you going to pay me? So is love a commandment? That's the question. So here's the thing. Let's pretend, you're having a fight with your sister. And you say to your mother, Mom, I hate my sister. What's your sister going to say? Your mother going to say? Yeah, I hate her too. No. Your mother's going to say, you can't hate your sister. You have to love your sister. How come? Because your mother intuitively knows love is a battlefield. All the Pat Benatar fans are here tonight. All right, anyway, so or you'll love her when you're older. That's cute. Let's pretend you're pregnant and you've got a baby in your belly. And someone comes up to you and says, are you going to love that baby in your belly? What are you going to say? Of course. What if that baby turns out to be a brat like the neighbor's kids? What about that? What about that? You'll still love it. How come you'll find something to love? In other words, intuitively we know that love is something you can command. So our romantic notion of love, of falling in love, it's not really rooted in Jewish sources. I'll give you a source for it in just a second. It really comes here in the West. Our belief systems are either based on, the Judeo-Christian ethic or the Greco-Roman tradition or a hodgepodge of all other ideas that come in there. So I believe our idea of romantic love is best illustrated by the Greeks. Cupid. What's Cupid? Cupid is a guy, who's in a diaper floating around. And there you are. You're sitting there in the supermarket, minding your own business. And all of a sudden you make eye contact with a beautiful stranger. And there's Cupid, pulls the arrow, ba-boom, hello. You fall madly in love. That's a beautiful idea, You make eye contact with a beautiful stranger in the supermarket and you fall in love. It's great. But what happens, the problem with it is that 5 years later, you're working late in the office, you're on a group project, and there's Cupid again. Out with the old, in with the new. You ever hear a father say, call a meeting with his family? Children, I'm kicking you all out. I'm moving in with the neighbor's kids. Maybe, but generally speaking, these kind of things don't happen. Because why? Because love, ultimately, this idea of falling in love, it's beautiful. It makes for great movies. It's romantic, but it's not really what love is. At least not according to the Jewish idea. In Judaism, we don't fall in love. In Judaism, you grow in love. And it comes like this. If you look in the Torah, in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, it says, don't take revenge. Don't bear a grudge. ... There's more of the verse. Love your neighbor as yourself. This actually allows you translation. I'm using love your neighbor. Neighbor is from the King James Version. That's in the Hebrew, it's v'ahavta l'reyecha. A re is really your fellow man, another person. Love another person like you love yourself. But anyways, what does the first half of this verse, taking revenge and bearing a grudge, have to do with loving somebody else? The answer is everything. What happens when you take revenge or bear a grudge? You're focusing on the negative. You're harboring resentment against another person. I'll give you an example. If you're the kind of person who always squeezes the toothpaste at the end and rolls the tube neatly up, it's guaranteed you're going to marry a slob who squeezes it in the middle. If you're the kind of person who always puts the cap back on the toothpaste, you're going to marry a bum who always leaves the cap off. You're the kind of person who always turns off the light when you leave the room. Your spouse will always leave the light on. So anyways, what ends up happening when you get into an argument, you'll find people when we argue, we generally only argue about significant things for about a minute, and then we argue about how we argue. But what you'll find is that when you're mad at a person, you'll think about the thing that upset you, but that thing will lead to another thing, will lead to another thing, will lead to another thing. You'll be like, you really upset me. And you're always upsetting me. You're always squeezing the toothpaste in the middle and leaving the cap off. You're always leaving the light on when you leave the room. You always park in the wrong spot in the garage. I'll kill you. Anyways, so that's okay. You have to overcome these things. The point is that when you focus on the negative and one negative leads to another negative, that's what hate is. Hate is harboring resentment against another person. It's the cumulative effect of focusing on all those negatives. So what's love? Love is focusing on the positive. You focus on a virtue, you think at another virtue, you focus on another virtue. That cumulative effect of all that goodness, that's what love is. That warm, fluffy feeling, when I think about you and how you're kind and the nice things that you do, you know, that cumulative effect, that's not gas. That's love. That's what love is. So I can't command you to fall in love with me. I can command you to take a few minutes and to focus on my positive qualities and try to make a list of 1 or 2 good things about me. You know, everybody's got qualities. There's not a person alive who doesn't have good qualities. What's interesting, this is actually very funny. People think that love is blind. It's the exact opposite. Love is a magnifying glass for faults. The people that know you the best, who love you the most, know your faults better than anybody else. Anybody you've got an intimate relationship with, even if it's not a romantic relationship, just a roommate, you'll fight with your roommates and be nice to the stranger down the street. You'll fight with your spouse and be nice to the stranger down the street. You'll fight with your parents and be nice to whoever. How come? Because the more you know, the more you love, the more you're aware of the faults. That's just kind of the way life is. You know, so your job, you're really a connoisseur of love. It's to take that, make that effort and focus on the positive. Focus on the goodness and the virtue that exists in another person. Easier said than done, but you can do it for everybody. Obviously, there's a handful of Hitler and Stalins in the world, and if you focus on their positive qualities, you'll be a patsy. You don't want to do that. But most people in your life are not that evil. Most people in your life are quality people who have troubles and issues just like you do, have insecurities and problems just like you do. Focus on the positive. Don't focus on the negative. Become a connoisseur of love. If we had time right now, I would have us all sit in a big circle and play the love game. Everybody would focus on another positive quality with somebody else here. We'd have a guaranteed group hug by the end. Because that's just, you know, that's what it's all about. The cancer plaguing our society today is that people think since we disagree in ideas, be they philosophical, political, whatever it is, I must hate you. That's sick. That's disgusting. You know, it's true we disagree on things and we might have strong, passionate disagreements, but there's a lot more goodness that each of us has. We should make the effort to find the goodness and the positivity that exists in other people and then have a good fight. You know, you're not fighting with animals. You're fighting with other people. You just have core disagreements. That's okay. It's okay to disagree. Disagreeing with you is not personal. What's the counterfeit of love? Anybody know? Counterfeit of love? Not the opposite of love, but lust would be would just be lots of sex. The counterfeit of love, Joe got it from the picture. The counterfeit of love is infatuation. This picture was funny in the 80s, you know. Rod had a big comeback hit. Infatuated, you know, love is when I focus on you and on the goodness that exists in you, and I love you for you. Infatuation is when I focus on me, and I'm so awesome because I can land you. I've got whoever it is, you know, the rich person, the celebrity, the captain of the football team, whatever it is, you know. In other words, I'm focusing on something that's not the real person. It's not real. It's fantasy. It's about me, ultimately. Love is identifying virtue in another person and identifying that person with that virtue. I'll tell you an interesting thing I forgot to say. When I first got married, my rabbi said to me, he said, "Svi, you love the woman you're marrying?" I said, "Of course." So give me a couple reasons. I gave him a couple reasons. Said, "Okay, good, write it down." He said, "You know what you should do now for next year, your first year of marriage, once a week, write down another thing you love about your wife. And put it down on a piece of paper." Okay, good. You did it for yourself because you want to focus on the reason why you love your wife. On your first anniversary, give her a card with all 52 reasons on it. Isn't that beautiful? You're focusing on all the goodness and positivity in another person, and you're focusing on the goodness that exists in that person, identifying that person with that virtue, and review it. I had a friend who this is back in the days of Palm Pilots, and so he in his Palm Pilot, like 350 different reasons why he loved his wife. He'd come home, you know, it didn't matter how hard his day was at work or how good it was. He reviewed 3 or 4 different reasons, walked into the house, and was like, you know, feeling good, focusing on the positive. That's what we have to do. We need to be connoisseurs of love. Learn to find the goodness and positivity that exists in everybody, all right? If you're going to have an argument with your boss, let's say, if you're going to have an argument No, I set the bar high. If you're gonna have an argument with your boss, let's say, before you sit down and have the argument with your boss, think about one or two good qualities that your boss has. Your boss is not a horrible, rotten person. Maybe he or she just acts that way. But, find some of the positive qualities. Then go in there and have a good fight. Why? Because at least you're realizing I'm not arguing with the enemy. I'm arguing with another human being. We just happen to disagree on something. You become a connoisseur of love. You make the effort to find the virtue and goodness in everybody. Obviously, the people that you're involved in more intimate relationships with, whether it's your employees or your boss or your coworkers, your roommates, spouses, people you're dating, whatever it is, you should make a great family. Obviously, you should make a greater effort, but ultimately you should try to find the goodness that exists in everybody. So that's love. So fourth class pleasure is love. The counterfeit is infatuation. Fifth class pleasure is physical pleasure. The counterfeit is overindulgence. Alex, that's actually really funny. Okay. What's third class pleasure? Anybody know? Third class pleasure? Third class pleasure. It's one better than love. I'll tell you something interesting. All the songs on the radio, at least they used to be, they've gotten a little raunchier, but all the songs on the radio are about love. Exactly. What's better than love? And yet, love is only fourth class pleasure. What's better than love? So better than love. Money's fifth class pleasure, John. So anyways, third class pleasure. Oh, Spike Lee, he just won an Oscar yesterday. It's meaning or doing the right thing. Having meaning, doing the right thing. Think about this. And this is a hard one to focus on, but think about it. Most people, like we said, wouldn't sell their children for money. But people do send their children to go and fight for causes they believe in. How come? Because having meaning, having purpose, doing the right thing, it's greater than love. Now, don't misunderstand me. God forbid. We should never know such things. But a person loses a child, God forbid. It kills. However, your child died for something meaningful. It's easier to take than, let's say, if your kid was just killed by a junkie trying to get money for his next fix or whatever it is, At least it's not meaningless. It's not senseless. There's meaning there. That's the whole point. Having meaning, doing the right thing. Doing the right thing. I don't know better. Yeah, Ali Mucha, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. When I say better, I just say it's a higher level, right? Because there's no exchange, right? I guess one of the ways that you can quantify what's a higher level is that, and this is the way I look at it, you're getting more and more selfless. Physical pleasure is completely selfish. It's me experiencing the physical world. It's all about me. Love, it's still about me, but the pleasure comes from identifying the goodness in you. Third class pleasure already, doing the right thing, it's not really about me anymore. It's becoming more altruistic. It's really about getting beyond myself and getting out and feeling and doing something constructive in the world. I'll give you an example. Have you ever found a wallet in the street and given it back? Given the wallet back with the money in it. With the money in it. Of course you have, right? How hard was it to do that? It's hard. It's not hard. We had this. I find it hard to do. I would give the money back, but it's hard to do because they're never gonna know. I'm still giving the money back. I'm giving back the wallet. Not stealing your ID. I'm not gonna use your credit cards. The cash wasn't there when I found it. No, but you give it back. Okay, it's hard because you're doing something moral. You're overcoming something in yourself. I'll give you an example. I'll give you another example. Have you ever helped somebody who didn't say thank you? How does it feel to help somebody who didn't say thank you? It feels good, right? Depends on the person, right? Depends on the person. Have you ever helped a person who couldn't say thank you? Ever help a person who wasn't able to say thank you? How does that feel? Well, whether you're helping an elderly person cross the street, or a person who's infirm in bed and can't speak, or you bury the dead, or you give a gift anonymously, whatever it is. How do you feel? Or you help a baby. Exactly. You feel amazing. You feel amazing because you're getting beyond yourself. In other words, doing the right thing, getting beyond yourself, getting out of your own personal zone and transcending, doing something with real meaning, real value. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable pleasure. And this is greater than love. Love is amazing, but you'll find people who've got tons of money, great families, people who love them, who are so lost. And they're searching for meaning because you need to get beyond yourself. You want to have meaning. Being good, doing the right thing, it's powerful. Okay, what's the counterfeit? Not the opposite, but the counterfeit of doing the right thing. Anybody know? Of having meaning, of being good. The counterfeit is? Alex is pretty much on the money. Yes. Status. The counterfeit of doing the right, of being good, is looking good. Counterfeit of being good is looking good. You're doing it for the reward. I'm a rabbi. It's not easy to become a rabbi. You got to work really hard. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. So I'm a rabbi. If you come up to me and you say, hey there, Mr. Tzvi. And I'm like, Mister? You plebe? It's a rabbi to you, scum. All right, so I've kind of missed the point of being a rabbi, you know? You ever meet a doctor like that? Like, you call the doctor, hey, Ms. or whatever it is. Like, who are you calling me? I'm doctor to you, fool. You get it? That's the point. You lose the forest to the trees. You forget what why you got into being a rabbi or a doctor in the first place, and it's all just about the titles, okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with having a title, and the titles are important, and for us, people to respect the rabbi, okay, it's good, or the doctor, you want to respect them, but to get all hung up on these things, so I'll give you another example. Giving a donation is a great thing, and don't misunderstand what I'm about to say, because people sometimes misunderstand this. Putting your name on a building. Oftentimes, people will give a donation and put their name on a building, and the reason why they do that is to inspire their deadbeat friends to see this cause is important to me, you should donate as well. Okay, but some people, it's just, you know, I want everybody to know that I'm such a generous guy. You know, they still give me the money. It's still a great thing to do, but maybe you're missing at something there. It's more about yourself. You're doing it for status. Somehow I'm better than you because I have a nicer car. I have more watches, you know. I spend $50 for this sweatshirt. What did you spend? I spent $400 for my sneakers. You know, it's just like, you hear what I'm saying? In other words, you don't want to, it's not about the status. It's about not so much the intention behind it, but is it meaningful or not? You know, a kissing cousin of this idea of status is being productive or being busy. Now, again, being productive is great. You want to use your time wisely. You want to work hard. You want to be focused. But you'll find people who've already made their millions, who have families, got all sorts of things in life. They're still working 16 hours a day and cursing at everybody. And like, why? Because they're confusing being productive and being busy with having true meaning. It's the status. Don't get caught. Again, there's nothing wrong with these things necessarily, but if you're confusing being productive and being busy without actually accomplishing something, without actually getting beyond yourself, without doing something meaningful, you're kind of missing the point. So that's the thing. So third-class pleasure is meaning, you're doing the right thing. The counterfeit is status. Okay. What's fourth-class pleasure? Fourth-class pleasure would be love. The counterfeit is infatuation. Fifth-class pleasure is physical, and the counterfeit is overindulgence. Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. Anybody know what second-class pleasure is? One better. People are raising their hand on this. I don't know how to do that function. So, sorry. What would be one better than, thank you, Josiane. Now everybody raise your hand. Okay. Everybody press the button. Go ahead. Woo! Oh, my entire, you're going to crash my computer, people. Don't press the button. Oh my God, we're all four. I've created a monster. Giving would be third-class pleasure, Joshua. Excellent point. That's actually really funny. All right, giving would be third-class pleasure. So second-class pleasure. What is meaningful? Meaningful, like I said, meaningful would be things like your phone. Welcome back, Lauren. I mean, meaningful would be things like going beyond yourself, like giving a gift anonymously, giving charity, helping people, educating people, you know, all those types of things. Selfless actions, get beyond yourself. So what's second class pleasure? Second class pleasure would be, so I'll give you an example. Have you ever gone to a rally? You go to a rally, it's amazing, right? It's very powerful. You ever go, really, you feel like you're something? What's greater than going to a rally? Let's say you go to a rally and there's somebody on stage leading a chant. You know what's even greater? Leading the chant, getting everybody to come. In other words, second class pleasure is, it's the difference between being a private or a general in the army. You're both got a cause. You're both driving for something massive, but leadership or creativity. That would be second class pleasure. Leadership or creativity. And they're really the same thing. You ever had done anything creative? Creativity is mind-boggling, you know? Have you ever written a song or a poem or made a film or painted a picture or took a great photograph or executed a plan in business or a play in sports or, you know, whatever it is, whatever you create, you've written a business plan, whatever it is that you've done, when you get into the zone doing something creative, I'll tell you how it's the same thing in a second. When you get into the zone doing something creative, you're like, you can't stop. You feel like you're in another world. You're transcendent. There's a reason why there's a stereotype of the arrogant artist, because once you've gone into the zone, once you've touched true creativity, it's intoxicating because it's so unbelievable. I'll tell you something powerful as well. They're intuitively linked, the idea of creativity and leadership. I told you my background is in music. And so back in the day, when I used to play music professionally back when I was younger. And so I used to hang out with my music friends, sitting around talking about music. Very rarely were and this is very interesting, because we weren't spiritually focused at that point in our lives, but very rarely did our conversations go to things like the instruments we played and the sounds we made. Most often our conversations were about how our music was going to change and transform society or change other people. We intuitively knew that the creative power, the power of our art, was to transform and change other people. Now, our definition of changing people wasn't necessarily so healthy or good. But the point is that we are aware of this power. Creativity is the ability to transform and to use your skills to inspire, to motivate, to captivate, and to give other people the tools and independence to find meaning and love and goodness in their lives as well. And we can understand even better if you understand the counterfeit. The counterfeit of doing the right thing is power. I mean, so the counterfeit of leadership is power. If you ever talk to an evil dictator, whether this is Muammar Gaddafi or Pol Pot or Saddam Hussein or Idi Amin or any of these guys, so at some point when they start out in their careers, they're actually probably idealistic and motivated and plugged into something good, but very, very quickly it devolves into maintaining power. You're pushing other people around, you're not really a leader. Something you'll notice as well, insecure people, because they can't control themselves, try to control other people. They try to push other people around. They're not really creative. They're not leaders. They're just bullies, you know? We all have friends who are, I want to go to the movie I want to go to. I want to go to the restaurant I want to go to. It's like, okay, you know, you've all been bullied or pushed around. The way to really see the dichotomy between leadership, creativity, and power the best is the profession of teaching. If you ever have a great teacher is somebody who is creative and can motivate and inspire and lead. And if there's a kid in the class who's not getting it, who has issues, a teacher will spend the entire year trying to reach that kid. He or she will spend the entire, how am I going to get through to that person? And when they have a breakthrough, wow, you know, the whole day is great. What's a bad teacher? Bad teachers, send that kid to the principal. Get that kid out of my class. And they just bully and lecture, pound it out into the other, you know, whatever. You see the same thing. It's either the real pleasure or the counterfeit. You're doing the same thing. You're doing the same actions. And yet you can either build up somebody or destroy somebody. Through leadership and creativity, you can build somebody or destroy them through just being a power-hungry slob. All right. So those are the first four. What's the ultimate pleasure? What's first-class pleasure? Number one, what's the best pleasure? Everybody's so religious. So the way I understand the best pleasure, first-class pleasure, is through the counterfeit. I understand it through the counterfeit of drugs and cults. Okay? When you take drugs, now don't misunderstand. Everything has a positive aspect. The drug of choice in Judaism is alcohol. There are times when you will use alcohol to change your perspective, but it's in a very limited amount. You ever talk to somebody who takes a lot of drugs, right? What's the problem with drugs? Ultimately, they destroy you. They destroy you, you know? I remember, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was in college, I had a friend in college who used to drop a lot of acid. I remember he says to me like this, he goes, Steve, man, I was with my girlfriend, man, and we were on acid, and I was staring at her head turned into a flame. I saw her soul. And I'm thinking to myself, no. You didn't see her soul. You were tripping on acid. It's like, you think you're experiencing the ultimate, and it's transcendent. It's not. And the proof that drugs are a counterfeit is look at what drugs do to you. Okay, take drugs once, nothing's going to happen. A lifetime of drug addiction, you can't do it. It'll kill you. It'll destroy you. Cults are the same thing. If you ask the cult leader, am I going to heaven? What will the cult leader say? Yeah. I mean, you got to join the cult. You got to believe what I believe. Of course you're going to go to heaven. You ask a rabbi, am I going to heaven? I didn't tell you what number one was yet, Sadie. You ask a rabbi, am I going to heaven? What's the rabbi going to say? I don't know if I'm going to heaven. I got to worry about you. In other words, if heaven really exists, we know that heaven can only come after a lifetime of effort or struggle. Anything good can only come through effort. So something like heaven, which is supposed to be the ultimate, could only come through a lifetime of heaven or of effort and struggle. So what's first-class pleasure? First-class pleasure is transcendence or godliness. It's leaving this world and experiencing the sense of oneness with something beyond, you know? And it's the ascetic experience. In Judaism, we have times for this, whether it's on the Shabbat, whether it's through fasting and prayer, Yom Kippur, there's a time to really get into that zone and experience the ultimate. And what's amazing about this, and this is really what I wanted to focus on, is that if you're really a connoisseur of first-class pleasure, you will find that first-class pleasure. Mystical experiences are totally in this category, exactly. In the East, they would call this enlightenment or nothingness. In Judaism, we would call this, I guess, oneness, enlightenment as well. Prophecy is the ultimate level of this, If anybody's interested in exploring this, I recommend a great book by a man named Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan called Jewish Meditation. And he really goes through a lot of these ideas and points that take you to this, that ultimately take you to this idea. This is the Shema, because the Shema is really our declaration in Judaism of our declaration of God's oneness. God's the only power, God's the only reality, God's the source of all existence. And really the reason why I bring this up is because the essence of understanding godliness is finding godliness in all the levels of pleasure. And this is really why what this class that I'm teaching you, it seems so superficial, and yet it's so deep. Physical pleasure, when you're eating that slice of pizza, when you're experiencing that physical pleasure, and you're in the zone, and you're on fire, and you're a connoisseur, whoa, it's a taste of godliness. When you're in love, when I see the goodness in another person, you identify that virtue in that person, that warm feeling you get, that love, taste of God. When you have true meaning, you give back that wallet with the cash. You help a person who can't say thank you. You get beyond yourself. You do the right thing. That feeling of God. When you use your skills and your creative skills to help transform and to help other people grow and to inspire and to lead, it's a taste of godliness. And then ultimately, that ultimate experience through whether it's through study or through prayer or whatever it is, through meditation, find that sense of oneness. Unbelievable. It's a taste of godliness. That's the whole point. And like we said, this whole conflict, it's a conflict between effort and struggle. You make the effort to be a connoisseur. You experience physical pleasure. You just will go for comfort. You overindulge. You make the effort to focus on virtue. You find true love. You want to be comfortable, you'll be infatuated. You make the effort to have meaning, to get beyond yourself, to do the right thing. Or you can be comfortable and just go after status. You make the effort to lead, to use your creative skills, to inspire and transform. You can be comfortable and push people around. And then ultimately, you can make the effort through prayer, fasting, meditation, the ascetic experience, to find godliness, to find transcendence, or you take drugs and turn off your brain. That's what it's all about. Anyways, those are the 5 levels of pleasure. And like we said, it's ultimately, the root of this ultimately is in the Shema. It's in the concept of loving God, which means finding a connection with reality, finding the pleasure of being with reality, and finding that level of transcendence and godliness in everything, whether it's physical pleasures in the mundane or in the highest pleasures when you're in your spiritual pursuits. The point is to find this level of transcendence, and to find the sense of godliness, and to experience the pleasures and the awesomeness of being alive in every facet and every area of it. All right, let's just do a little bit of review. You guys are amazing. Get your assignments in on time. Let me give you a link to the quiz. I will be sending this tomorrow when I post the video in the archive, but here it is now if you want to get started on it now. This is the quiz. Do the quiz. The quiz is about 5 questions, I think, multiple choice and short answer. And then there's the essay. The essay, like I said, remember the essay needs to be 2 to 3 paragraphs. It could always be longer, but it can't be less. Question: do you need to go over the counterfeit in order to understand and feel the pleasure? No, you can. The counterfeit is really just because you blew it. The counterfeit would be because you ate too many potato chips, or you fell in love with an idea of yourself. Everything is in a Google. The essay is reaction, but like I said, the essay needs to reflect. It needs to demonstrate that you understood the ideas as presented in class. These essays are due on Sunday. I would do them now, just while they're fresh in your head. Get it out of the way. But it's done by It should be due by Sunday. How can you reach this level of pleasure? Ultimately, Dina, we do this through. If you want to look at it in the that's in the Google form. You can just write it in the Google form. Ultimately, we do these things through Jewish experience. Physical pleasure. Think about it. Keep kosher. You say a blessing before you eat. Love. You invest in relationships. Meaning, doing the right thing. You give charity. You give a tenth of your income away. And I'm just giving examples. All these things. Creativity. All these things. Ultimately, you find there's a vehicle or a venue to do all these things through the Torah, through the Torah system. If you're forgetting if you forget anything, like I said, the video is going to be online tomorrow, so you can always watch and skip through it and to review. Join our Facebook group as well. I'll be posting everything there too. If you have personal questions, you need more answers, email me privately or just ask it in your essay. Just ask it in your essay, and when I go through, I'm going to be reading all of them, so I'll be giving to you there. If you haven't yet followed me on Instagram or Twitter, here I am. And the quiz and essays all together in the same. Rosanna, you just click on it, you'll see it's all the same thing. So I would do it now, but you don't have to. Get it in by Sunday. That's the goal. All right, everybody good? Let me stop the screen share. This is really a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed our first class. And like I said, I'll be posting the recordings on our website. I'll send you a link tomorrow. It takes a while. I have to download it. I'm going to go home, so it won't be downloaded until I won't be able to have access till tomorrow. Then I got to upload it. So by tomorrow afternoon, I'll get it out to you guys. More harmonica before I stop the recording? Sure. Here we go. There we go. You guys are great. All right. Have a great night. Stay out of trouble.